Welcome everyone to another Beyond All Reason video. I hope you get value out of today's video, and if you do, I would definitely appreciate a tickle of the like button. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe and keep an eye out for more videos dropping soon. I have a Twitch channel, and my wife has a jewelry store. Links are in the description below. Any support is appreciated. Now let's get into the video. Hello everyone and welcome to another Beyond All Reason. Today we're going to be looking at one of the most famous maps in the game. If you spent any amount of time searching for games, I'm sure you've come across this map. It is one of the most famous and one of the most played. Some hate it, some love it, and all play it because sometimes there's nothing but that to play. Now, we're going to be just doing a breakdown video of positionings and basically objectives that you want to have based on your position in the map. Then we'll also be going over like strengths and weaknesses and strategies that you can potentially use based on those weaknesses. So, we'll try to get into the early game and the late game as well. That way we're able to just cover all our bases. First off, we're going to be starting with the front line. We'll start over here. Front line on this side is relatively easy. It's one of the more easy lanes you could choose. I would say out of all the lanes besides the back line, these two are the easiest ones you could choose. Reason being is the canyon is one of the best places to push and one of the easiest places to take. I don't know what it is, whether it's the psychology of it or just the fact that there's ways to like hide in between the canyons, so it's harder to hold, but the canyon is almost always taken by the opposing force. So you'll have a tendency in the map for this side to push this way and actually take ground, and you'll also have a tendency for this side to push this way and take ground, okay? And we're actually going to talk about how to defend against this problem as well. So just be aware of that. Whatever side you choose, if you feel you are a little bit of a weaker player, this side could be easier for you to take if you get the chance, okay? So strategy for this will be to just pump out units as quick as possible. Some people will bring their commander up to the front, up there, and they'll do like a lot of degunning and try to push in, which is fine. You can definitely do that. And then whoever is supporting this player, these people have to work together, okay? Like really chain work together and have either a plan to push aggressively, or they we'll just say this based on how I play. If I'm in this spot, I will like 99% of the time be pushing out units quickly that are T1. This is not really an eco spot. I mean, you could use it as an eco spot, but it's not, I don't feel like it's as effective as an eco spot. So let's think about this. This lane is one of the weakest in the game. You have two players cranking out T1 pushing against this lane. If this guy, oops, if this guy here does his job and puts pressure here, and you're putting pressure here, then something's gonna give. Either this side's gonna give or this side's gonna give. There will be a crack, and whatever crack is there, then you can push all the way back, okay? But that's only that, you know, you're relying on 3 people for that. It's not just you. You're going to be relying on 2 other people to get this type of thing to happen, okay? It has a high potential of working. I've done it multiple times and I really love seeing it work, but it doesn't always work, okay? But those are just a couple ways you can play these 3 lanes, really. This lane is, or they're not 3 lanes, 3 positions. But this position is one of the easiest in the game. You often have the least amount of pressure on you, the most like ability to move around, the easiest way to tech. I mean, there's all sorts of benefits for this lane. Now, usually you'll come at around this side of the cavern, and everything on this side here is going to be for your allies. Everything over there is for your allies. But it really just depends on like how good this person is, right? So everything, all the lanes you choose, like all the ideas you have, really just depend on the quality of the player you're up against. So if you have like a bad teammate on this side, then like don't rely on him to do everything right. And same with like this side, just don't be a reliant player on your team. You need to help them, okay? Help where you can and try to rely on them as little as possible if you can. In this position especially, that's important. So, you can, like, if you see this player doesn't know what they're doing, take as much metal as you can. Okay, based on your experience level, take as much metal as you can. If this player ends up missing like this mechs over here, then you send your construction bot over there and take that metal. Okay, because like, if you're an experienced player, you've watched tutorial videos, you have an idea of how to do the game better than a new player, your highest potential is to be as efficient as possible. So going through and taking any leftover, just like scrolling out and observing the map to see, is there any mexes on this map that have not been taken, and going and taking them for yourselves when you're with new players is a good way for you to snowball and a good way just to keep the team efficient. Okay, so keep that in mind. But as this player, I like you're supposed to control basically this whole area. This is your zone. I like to try and manipulate this zone, and it works out pretty well for me. So I'll have my troops out here, and I'll often help push this side and kind of deviate from the normal pattern of play, because that puts a lot of pressure right here. Whoops. That puts a lot of pressure right here, which then causes all of these guys to rotate. Why is it doing that? Causes all these guys to rotate, and then that leaves an opening right here. Okay, what is going on? Anyway, it leaves an opening right here. Now, the benefit to this, I'll explain in a second. The benefit is if you have, say, a group of pawns over here, but you have your main force over here pushing, they're gonna swing around and try to stop that. You can push in, assuming that this side is not too heavy and that they won't collapse on you. Okay, but you can push in and potentially go all the way to their back line. And I've done this multiple times. And one great thing is if they end up pushing into you with resistance here. Okay, well, there's too many arrows. Let's get the arrows settled down there. If they push into you here and they end up stopping you, you can deviate and go into the back line here. You could deviate, go into the back line here. You know, whatever you need to do. With pawns, they're fast, they're mobile, and like creating extra pressure in one area to try to sneak around defenses is an excellent thing you should try doing in your games. And I feel like this lane here, this area has the highest potential for that, just because there's less for you to think about. There's less for you to worry about, in my opinion. And based on what I've seen in games being played. Now, this position, this is what you would call the eco spot. It is, I don't know. I feel like this position has some of the lowest potential in the game. Every time I play this position, I'm like, man, like the game's over and I don't even feel like I did anything. That could be because I'm playing it wrong and maybe I'm not ecoing quite hard enough. but I often find that the front lines end up needing my help or something, and I have to start cranking out units or something like that. So, uh, I know that people say leave the eco positions for the more advanced players, but on All That Glitters, based on the severe importance of the front lines, I will often play front line if I'm one of the stronger players. That being said, people might get mad at you if you're new and you go for this position because there's a standard that new players are to be frontline. Go for it. That's a great way to learn the game. That's a great way to um, just throw yourself out there and get better. That's what I did, and it helped a lot. So don't be scared of the front line. Try to choose the front line. Try to get in. Excuse me. Try to get into the action if you can. That'll help you out. Anyway, this being said, the eco player, he will often be sacrificing his commander over here somewhere, sucking up all the metal, teching up really fast, things like that. And he's either going to pop out T2 rapidly, or he's going to work on like getting an advanced fusion reactor up and supplying that energy to the team, things like that. I have a theory with this area with the eco position that I want to try that I haven't gotten a chance to try yet, and that is to just be a resource goblin for your team. All you do is make massive amounts of energy, convert it into metal, and spread the metal to the rest of your team. That's something I was thinking about trying, haven't had the opportunity to do it yet, but think about that. That could be useful for this position in All That Glitters. Also, this position, you're going to want to reclaim metal that you see on the map more, because often it's a little bit more of a slow start and a slow grind through things. So just use your APM to try to help the front at reclaiming metal and keeping that into your team as much as possible. This guy. Oh, also, you can go for nukes in this position, but often nukes are very well prepared for at this point in the game. So, uh, good luck, and I am surprised if you get a nuke off. And it be worth it, because you also have to remember that by doing a nuke, you are no longer doing other things. Alright, this position is very, very vital. It has a very large section that you're responsible for. Okay, that's quite large. And it's one of the harder areas to control in the game. If you are a better player, this is a good spot for you, honestly, because it can help hold the canyon. It can help if there's a leak here. You have a very pivotal role in both sides, you know. So if you're a good player, this is a great place for you, just to have a larger reach in the game and to verify that lines don't end up collapsing. Okay. That being said, though, you also have the most pressure on you because there's the highest potential for leaks on your side. Now, that being said, because this is a weaker position, this is also a weaker position. So keep that in mind. There's the opposites of each, right? Where they have the same problem that you do. Okay. So with this lane, I'll often find it's very important to only give up ground when you have to, but also to not be afraid to give up ground, because you're more likely to have the pressure. If you need to pull your troops back and just not take losses needlessly, then do that. You know, put a little bit more pressure on the canyon. And that sounds mean, right? And it kind of is mean, but the point is reserve your forces for when you have the opportunity to push again. Okay? You don't want to take losses. You don't want to lose all of that potential fighting power just to have the enemy collapse fully, right? Like say instead of falling back, you decide to push forward, okay? So you're going forward now. Okay? They have, beamer turrets and laser turrets and just defenses everywhere, the lightning pop-ups, the flame pop-ups, and you push into it because you're taking bombardment fire or whatever, you've wasted all of your metal. It's all on their side. They can eat it up. And guess what they're going to do with all that metal? T2 it up, and now you're dead. That's basically how that will work. So, yeah, this lane kind of sucks. You do have a little bit more aggression towards you, but let them pull forward past. So if their defensive line is here and they push forward past their defensive line, it creates a huge opportunity, okay? So say your guys are here, they're pushing towards you. Your allies can come in through the canyon, not really take bombardment fire because of these rocks, and you can push in from this side as well. You can honestly push in from both sides. If you have like your main force here and a bunch of pawns or blitz tanks here, you can use them to come around. Anyway, you can corner them and just decimate everything in this area relatively easy. And then guess what? All of this is reclaimed for you, and instead of them getting T2, that's all you. Okay? You now get your T2 and have a massive potential in the game. So, um, use the strategy of falling back when you need to and if you need to. And also like be aware, like if you can push in and like take this whole area, do it, don't be afraid to move your troops somewhat off of the front line. I feel like that doesn't happen quite as often as it maybe should. Is a little bit of more rotating to put higher pressure in certain areas, or maybe coming on this side. However you can, helping your teammates to aggress and maybe take some extra ground that's important. Uh, Something to look at. It probably will, just look at it, see if it helps you in your games. Anyway, on to the air player. Do not go here if you are not somewhat comfortable with air. And I will make one difference to that statement, and that is do not go here unless you desire to get better at air. Okay, so you might not be the best air player, you might not be like amazing, and let your team know that. Be like, hey, I am not great at air, but I'm willing to try this. And if they're fine with it, if no one's yelling at you, if no one's trying to be air and like say, oh, I'm good at air, then try it. And I recently got a chance to try air for the first time. Well, not the first time, it was like the third or fourth time. And I probably suck at it, but I know enough about the game to like crank out units, right? I mean, more is better. And you get to mess around with some air strategies that other people might not know because you're not fully grounded in what the standard air build is. So don't be afraid of the air spot, but also offer it to others if you don't feel super comfortable with it. Okay, that's about all there is to say about that. Late game you're gonna want to keep a huge amount of air out there to defend from giant swarms of bombers and such, but I don't feel like there's that much that needs to be talked about. This side's pretty standard. Also, this is something that can be helpful. Late game, you could build a Ragnarok here. There is nothing wrong with that. But make sure your team knows, because if you don't have enough air units coming out and the team does a running of a bombing run and kills all of your bases, your Ragnarok does nothing, okay? That happened to me a couple games ago where one of my teammates went for the Ragnarok. Just be aware, get anti-air out everywhere if your air player is going for a Ragnarok, okay? Not saying it's a bad thing to do, just saying it's probably a good idea to make sure everyone's on the anti-air business first. Alrighty, now we get to the fun lanes right here. This is the hardest lane in the entire game that I have found. I don't know if I can say that definitively, but out of all the matches that I've played, this seems to be the hardest lane in any map in any game, except for maybe Supreme Isthmus, the where the strait is. The starting points right there are pretty tough because your base will almost always get destroyed. But this is pretty tough. So your goal is literally just to hold here and here if you can. If you can't, then it's to hold here and here. Oftentimes people rush their commander up and like take this area. If that's the case, you know, try your best to defend against it, but don't, whatever you do, don't lose past this point, because once they get past this point, it's GG basically. Okay, so if you have to hold back here, try to hold up here. Now, in combination with this, if they are holding you at this position, how should your teammates react? This is a big problem. Okay, there's another player here, and they have, oh, did it again. Okay, there's another player here, and they have control over this whole section of the map. They should, and if they are nice teammates and they have all of this area under their control, they should push in at the exact same time that you are pushing in. Okay, this would make this area here a death trap for whoever is there. This shouldn't be easy to hold. This should be a lot of work to hold. And if you're in this position and you see the canyon needs help, it is your responsibility to help them. You can wipe out a commander, you can get a ton of free metal. There's a lot of potential just by taking out, by putting a little bit more pressure on one area of the map and then returning to your area, okay? So look into doing that, look into working together, and a lot of times this player is a little bit too oblivious, so you might have to fall back. If you do, don't be afraid of it. Just try to hold as much as possible, try to build up your economy as much as possible. Don't waste your units. Don't just throw them in mindlessly to die. Okay. As this player, you should be pushing with your teammate. This is not an eco. Not eco. Okay? Push with your team because this area is so vital. I mean, let's look. This is why this is so vital. It has a 3.2 mex, which is pretty good. I mean, it's the best mexes on the map. So if you can gain control of that mex, hold off the areas and just control it, you'll have a fairly good metal advantage. So helping your canyon push is really important, especially early game. You can kind of fall off of that a little bit after you get towards like the mid game and try to tech up, but you don't really want to tech up quickly in this position. And when I see people do that, it usually means they lose the whole lane and the whole canyon gets collapsed, and then the air gets collapsed, and then the back lines, and so on and so forth. The whole game's gone basically. So yeah, don't eco until you know that you have time and you know that you're well defended up towards the front line. Okay, so those are the basic standard placements, standard ways of playing. You can switch them up. That's the great thing about Beyond All Reason is all games are different. All ways of playing every game is different, and it's a very fluid game. But this is one of the more rigid maps that has rigid starting positions. So those are the recommended ways of playing each position, in my opinion. If you have different opinion than that, you can go ahead and say it in the comments below. And that's about it. Bye.